Hello guys, my name is Brandino and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be reacting to scientists reveal biggest secret of the Titanic iceberg. Now, before anyone says anything, like, I know you guys are typing, this is a video from Brightside, yes, a channel that I got said to go away from it and not actually because it's false. That's why in today I'm going to word it as reviewing it. I am merely just reviewing it. I am definitely not going to be agreeing with everything they're saying or something like that, because let's be honest, what kind of secrets is going to be about an iceberg? It's literally just an iceberg. What secrets could be about it? It's not like it's going to be like an underwater city in the iceberg, is it? So yeah, I'm merely just reviewing it just to see what the hell's false information they're going to say. So yeah, let's have a look.
A beam of electric light pierces the darkness over the calm waters of the Atlantic Ocean.
Bring me the false.
The Titanic is quietly making its way through the waves, its passengers asleep.
Why is this a horror story?
Suddenly, a monstrous white shape is caught in the light beam. The fateful iceberg is about to
Why is this a horror story?
The legendary ship.
Okay.
April 14th, 1912.
Okay, sure. False story, yeah. Not false story, but yeah.
Of a giant iceberg with a pretty unusual elliptical shape. It turns out that this iceberg most likely formed out of snow that fell 100,000 years ago.
No, really? No, really? You don't say. Out of snow? I didn't know that.
Researchers used computer modeling to figure out its origin. They used data from 1912 and added some new information about winds and ocean currents. They concluded that the iceberg was probably a part of a small cluster of glaciers in southwest Greenland.
Right, okay.
These days, it's possible to calculate the routes of such icebergs in any given year in the past. So the infamous chunk of ice was on its way from Greenland to an area further south from Cornwall. If the ship had passed through that region only 2 days later, the iceberg would have moved far away from the point where they met. At first, the weight of the most well-known iceberg in the world was 75 million tons. With time, it started to slowly melt away. And when it sank the Titanic, its weight was only 1.5 million tons.
Why is it like in a horror story form?
By the time of the collision, it had probably been melting for months, but it was still a true monster. When the Titanic sank, the iceberg was 400 feet long, and more than 100 feet of its surface was above the water.
Sure.
Some people believe it was a super moon that caused the Titanic to sink.
No.
That night, there was a rare lunar event. It hadn't happened for 1,400 years.
Okay.
In normal conditions, the iceberg wouldn't have traveled so far south without melting and losing the largest part of its mass. But the supermoon could have been the reason for an unusually high tide that pulled the iceberg away from the glacier way faster than usual.
Highly doubt that.
There's a specific type of bacteria that slowly consumes the remains of the Titanic. Salt corrosion, ocean currents, freezing temperatures, plus this rust-eating microorganism might consume the entire wreckage. American actress Dorothy Gibson was aboard the Titanic.
There we go.
She survived, and when she arrived in New York, she started filming a movie called Saved from the Titanic almost right away. The movie was released only a month after the Titanic sank, and in the movie,
I think we've gone over this bit of the story. I think we have gone over this bit.
She had during the actual disaster. The movie was a big success at that time, but the only known copy was destroyed in a fire.
Watching like a lot of Titanic videos, we are going to get a few of the same stuff already repeated, but yeah.
14 years before the Titanic sank, a novella called Futility had been published, and it seemed to have predicted the whole event. The plot centered around a fictional ship called the Titan that sank during its voyage.
What?
The Titan was almost the same size as Titanic, and they both went to the bottom in April. The reason was hitting an iceberg, too. Both the real and fictional ships were described as unsinkable, and both of them had the legally required number of lifeboats, which, as it turned out later, were nowhere near enough.
Do not say this is a SWAT one.
There were some real-life love stories happening on the Titanic, too. 13 couples even took a trip on the Titanic as part of their honeymoon. One of the couples owned Macy's department store in New York. Once it became clear the Titanic was rapidly sinking, the woman refused to go into a lifeboat without her husband. But he didn't want to join her while there were still women and children who he thought had to go first.
Yeah,
then his wife gave her coat to her maid. She insisted that the maid should get into the lifeboat and she wanted her to be warm. As for the woman herself, she decided to stay with her husband till the end.
I mean, usually I'll say more comments about it. It's just like, it's a bit of a weird, it's like, what do you say about it? You know what I mean? There's some, like, truth, and there's some, like false, but mainly it's just false, yeah. Freaking supermoon, like, caused the Titanic to sink. Give me a break, come on, seriously? That's never, ever been said, ever, not once.
Some people believe Titanic sank because of a mummy,
I know this.
not an iceberg.
I know this story.
Around 1000 BCE with a mysterious woman who lived in Egypt.
Okay, I know this story.
People knew little about her, but they called her a priestess. Her mummy was put in a wooden sarcophagus and covered with a large lid with the image of her face and some mystical inscriptions. This place had been hidden until the first half of the 19th century, when a group of locals accidentally came across it. They disturbed her peace. No one knows how, but the mummy disappeared that day.
Okay, so I actually remember this story. I actually read about this story in my book, because literally the book is literally called Haunted London Underground, which has nothing to do with Titanic whatsoever, but this story popped up into the book. So this basically object, anyone who possesses it, results in a fatal death. This object, this point object, whatever it was actually on a Titanic the day it sunk. And I thought, that's a weird, amazing coincidence. It is now in the museum. I actually reacted to a video when it actually told this story, but then YouTube decided to block this segment. I don't even know why, but they decided to block this segment. So I'm hoping I can keep this segment.
A couple of decades later, a group of rich friends from England traveled to Egypt and found the empty mummy casket with the image of the priestess, whose dark eyes seemed to be looking into the void. They decided to buy it, but the buyer disappeared the same night before he even got the case. All members of the group had some accidents. The casket changed its location a couple of times until it, as some believe, ended up on the Titanic. It took more than 70 years for a robot submarine to find the ruins of this legendary ship. The wreck lies nearly 13,000 feet under the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, split into two halves. Why did the liner break apart? No one knows exactly. Some think it happened because of the water that got inside when the ship collided with the iceberg. The pressure was so powerful it separated two parts of the vessel, starting with the ship's bottom structure. Others say it was because of the hull rivets. They had a high concentration of slag or smelting residue, and that's something that can cause the metal to split apart. The ship generally had many flaws.
I mean, we have not had reacted to any videos like the whole Titanic split in half. That might be another historic travels to look at. But as we know about, the compression and everything.
The watertight bulkheads weren't completely sealed on top. This allowed the water to flow between the compartments and, in the end, sink the vessel. The iron of the ship's rivets and steel of the hull ended up ruined because of high sulfur content, cold temperatures, and high speeds. The steel shattered and the rivets popped out quite easily. Because of this, Titanic sank 24 times faster than it would have otherwise.
Titanic did not sink like that. The bit literally was stuck there at the top, so literally only the bottom half of it sunk first, not the whole ship at once.
If it hit the iceberg head-on instead of ramming it with its side, it would have probably stayed afloat.
Definitely wasn't upside down either.
Didn't have binoculars. It would have surely helped them spot the iceberg on time and maybe even avoid the disaster. But the binoculars on the Titanic were locked in a storage cabinet.
This bit was true.
And he had been transferred off the ship right before it set sail. He later said he hadn't remembered to hand over the key. But even without the binoculars, the ship might have had some time to change course and avoid the collision if the crew had gotten some warning. But that's the thing. Someone did warn them. About an hour before the incident, a ship that was relatively close to Titanic, the SS California, sent a message to inform them it had stopped because of dense ice field.
But there was no signals. There was no signal warnings. They would have survived away. There was no signals.
It never got to the Titanic's captain. Some experts say it was because the radio operator didn't think it was that urgent. And later, the SS California said they didn't get a call for help from the Titanic because their radio operator was off duty. Some say the crew on the Titanic couldn't spot the iceberg on time because of an optical illusion. Atmospheric conditions that night probably caused super refraction, which could have camouflaged the berg.
Oh,
After all,
I hate
no
this
one
now. I hate
actually
this.
saw
I hate
the
this.
iceberg until it was too close to the ship to
Oh,
somehow
come off
avoid the
it.
crash.
Come right off it. An optical illusion. An optical illusion, yeah? That's because you're not seeing a Oh, okay. Yep, okay. God. You know, it's actually more entertaining to watch because it's literally just mugging it off now. It's just taking the mick. It's taking the mick.
Not even a whole minute passed between the moment they saw the iceberg and the collision. It was only 37 seconds, and it took Titanic 2 hours and 40 minutes to disappear below the ocean's waves.
Wow, at least they got the length of the film right. Jesus. Like I said, it was merely just a review. Nothing more than that. I'm just revealing the false positivity. But the cursed mummy object item, where the hell it was, that's true. The binoculars, that one is also true. And it's like probably at some slightly more detail. But like the iceberg with like the history of it, like where it came from and everything. Like definitely not true. Optical illusion, that's probably the worst theory I've seen yet. Oh my god. These like... Oh, the theories that people come out with is just insane. It's ridiculous. It makes you just want to... So when you scratch your hand like down a marking board, it just gives you that ick. Yeah, I'm done for today. Yes, I'll see you guys in the next one.